Hello everyone, my name is Guillermo and I did my project on plesiosaurs, or plesiosauria. Plesio meaning near to, and saur meaning lizard or reptile. So I want to start out by discussing plesiosaur size. They would have typically grown to an average of 4 to 6 meters and weighed up to 1,000 pounds. The largest known plesiosaur um, to have existed measured at roughly 7 meters long and was discovered in Patagonia. Now, just a quick um, comparison of humans and plesiosaurs. Now, when a man is standing, they don't look too intimidating until you really lay down and if you would, swim next to them side by side, that's when you see exactly how long these guys are. As you can see, um, with our arms tucked to the side, our head would pretty much only reach up until the beginning of their neck. So we really only account for the average man would really only account for just their body size. And even with our arms stretched out, you really only get about 3/4 of plesiosaur's size. So you really don't see how intimidating these guys are until you're really you really see how long they are. Now, when did plesiosaur live? Well, they existed during the Mesozoic era, from the early Triassic up until the end of Cretaceous. Now, who was the first to discover them? Well, that would belong to Mary Anning, who was the first to discover plesiosaur in 1823. She also discovered other fossils such as pterosaurs and ichthyosaurs. But many dismissed her discoveries and refused to acknowledge her work and her achievement until they realized that they had been greatly mistaken and realized that Mary Anning had at the time made discoveries that no other man could lay claim to. And she definitely lacked the respect that she had deserved and that she had gained what she should have gained up until that point. And it wasn't until much later that scientists acknowledged that her work was correct, and they were simply, in other words, hating and discriminating against her because she was a woman. And she ended up being one of the greatest paleontologists of her time, and she really paved the way for many future paleontologists. Now, where can plesiosaur fossils be found? They can be found near the Pacific Ocean in continents such as North America, Australia, Asia, and also be found near Europe. Now, what did plesiosaurs eat? Well, they feasted mainly on fish and squids, and on some occasions they even ate clams and other crustaceans, which include lobsters, crabs, etc. They had sharp and canonical teeth, and in a recent study of a plesiosaur's gut content, they discovered that that they discovered an ichthyosaurus's embryo remnants inside the gut content. Now, an ichthyosaur was far too large for a plesiosaur to hunt down and kill. So, if it consumed its embryo, scientists are now believing that plesiosaur could have also been a scavenger who took advantage of any meals that it came across, um, as that would be the most explanational. That would make the most sense as to how uh, a, an ichthyosaurus embryo ended up inside of a plesiosaur's gut. Now, to discuss their body types, they had plesiosaurs had large bodies with short tails and flippers that were shaped like paddles. They had long necks with triangular shaped heads. Their necks consisted of at least 35 cervical vertebrae, which consisted for more than 50% of their bodies. They did not have gills, therefore they could not breathe underwater and had to come up to breathe. They had nostrils on the back of their heads, behind their eyes. Now that the fact that they couldn't breathe underwater and had to come up to breathe is one trait that they share with whales and other mammals. But we'll discuss that in a little bit. We'll get back to that. Now, I want to talk about the movements, plesiosaur movements. They had two pairs of paddle-like arms that were identical in size and weight. They moved while flipping all four flippers simultaneously. While the front flippers were flapping, it would create a vortex under its body that would allow plesiosaurs to flap their back flippers between the whirlpools. Even though they had long necks, plesiosaur necks were not as flexible as many have depicted. The movement in their neck was limited. They did not have much flexibility when sweeping their necks in the side-to-side motion, which they did when they were capturing fish. That was one way they fed. They would sweep their necks in motion, um, and they were not able to lift their necks up as high as many, as I said, as many illustrations have drawn them. And what taxon does plesiosaur belong to? Well, they belong to Ceropterygia. Um, Plesiosaurs are the most diverse in terms of taxonomy from all Mesozoic marine reptiles. Ceropterygia originated in early Triassic, and they would eventually become Placodonias and Eusoripterygia, which also include Pistosauridia, which are plesiosaurs. Pistosauridia also include young Youngusaurus, Pistosaurus, Augustosaurus, and Bobosaurus, which are all distant relatives to plesiosaur. However, I left out my favorite relative that I'm going to show you on the next slide. So these three are relatives that I mentioned in the last slide. This guy looks pretty intimidating, but this guy right here, Plesiosaurus, I believe one of my classmates did their project on this guy, but this was definitely going to be my first or my next choice, I should say. Now, these guys look a lot like whales, um, but they're different in the fact that they have a second set of flippers, and these guys are just absolute tanks, man. And they resemble a lot of whales, and yeah, they're the famous Predator X. Now, what drove plesiosaurs into extinction? Well, many scientists believe it was a KT event that ended plesiosaurs. That was a mass extinction of over 3/4 of the world's population, and that was done approximately 66 million years ago, wiping out nearly all life, all plant and animal life on Earth. Now, plesiosaur birthing process. Did they give live birth or lay eggs? Many scientists have argued that it would be physically impossible for a plesiosaur to lay eggs because the fetus would be far too large. Plesiosaurs weren't the only marine-like reptiles that were capable of giving live birth. However, scientists point out the fact that plesiosaurs are unique in the fact that they only give birth to one offspring, as opposed to other marine reptiles that lay eggs. And when they lay eggs to multiple offsprings. Newborn offsprings are estimated to be as long as 5 feet, which is approximately a third of the size of its mother. Now, earlier, as I mentioned, they do share some similarities between modern day mammals. Another one being if whether they traveled in packs or pods. Now, there has been some cases of smaller plesiosaur fossils that were discovered near larger fossils, which led scientists to believe that plesiosaurs could have traveled in packs or pods, much like whales and dolphins do today. The fact that plesiosaurs share some characteristic traits with current day mammals, um, like giving live birth, and coming up to breathe, not being able to breathe underwater, adds some credence to the theory that plesiosaurs could have moved in groups and protected their offsprings like modern day mammals do, rather than swimming alone and living the every plesiosaur for itself life. Now, one quick fact fun fact before I end my presentation: plesiosaurs are the inspiration behind the infamous Loch Ness monster. All right, everyone, that is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for watching and listening. I hope I was able to teach you a thing or two about plesiosaurs, and you left this presentation learning something. Thank you so much, and happy holidays. Have a good one. Thank you.